how dry it was in the summers of 2011 and 2012? Well, that doesn't even begin to compare to the droughts endured in Illinois during the 1930s.
Take a look at this graph developed by state climatologist Jim Angel from the Illinois State Water Survey. It measures the degree of drought for the years 1930 to 1936. The dark line that you see there is average. The first line under that is the drought line. The second line down means extreme drought. You can see how far down that red line goes. The summers of 1930 and 31 and 1933 and 34 by far the worst.
Droughts around the country changed the way people live today, and there's a new exhibit talking about the Dust Bowl and its national impact. Is coming to Eastern Illinois University over in Charleston.
Yeah, joining us, Beth Hildebrandt and Kirsten Duffin with the Booth Library. Good to have you both.
Thank you.
So, Beth, probably the best known story about the drought would be probably, I'm asking my librarian friends here, it would be the Grapes of Wrath.
Right. I think most people use that as their basis of research for this. Either the film or the movie, both were very popular when they first came out and still are today. As part of our series, we will be looking at those. We have exhibits and programs related to the book and the film screening that we will be presenting. An interesting note about the film, The Grapes of Wrath, is the cinematographer for that film was Greg Tolan, who actually was born in Charleston. Went along later to get some Oscar awards for his work, but he was very well known for his time period, and it was just fitting for us to include this as a film screening since he has that local connection.
Yeah, well, and I think we're going to see as we talk a little bit about this, some of the video from the trailer for that movie back from 1940. You can see it on here. And this was really, Kirsten, a nationwide issue. We talked about some of the Illinois statistics, not necessarily the specific focus of this exhibit, but I mean, this had a national impact.
It did, right. The epicenter for the Dust Bowl really was the Oklahoma Panhandle, Texas, Colorado, Kansas, but certainly the blowing of the dust came all the way to Illinois, all the way to the Atlantic seaboard, especially, of course, the storm of Black Sunday, is that what it was called?
Yes.
Black Sunday, where Champaign newspapers had information about the dust affecting this area.
So
amazing.
What is involved with this exhibit? What can we see?
Sure. The exhibit is coming to us from the American Library Association and the National Endowment for the Humanities, and it's a 10-panel exhibit, double-sided, and so it's got information about the economic and ecological factors leading up to what caused the Dust Bowl, because it wasn't just a lack of rain. It was also the over-tilling of the land as well, and economic factors.
And Beth, talk to us a little bit about that, because we now have soil conservation districts. It's part of our lives now,
right.
But back then, not so much.
Right. As a matter of fact, the Soil and Water Conservation District came out of the Dust Bowl, which was something I've learned in the last month or so as we were bringing this exhibit. We will have somebody from the Coles County SWCD talking about this, but it was in direct result to what happened during the Dust Bowl, in that farmers at the time, they were moving west. It was the Great Depression. They were trying to find a way to make money. They tilled up, unfortunately, the native grasses on this prairie land and planted wheat and other crops. It was a way for them to get by, but in the long run, they over-tilled. That's what created the dust, and in result of that, President Roosevelt, among his New Deal programs, started these soil and water conservation districts. So we learned what we did wrong, and we don't do that again.
So we learned what we did wrong, but how did they survive? What did they figure out to keep going on?
It was a rough period for about 10 years there. Some of the other government programs were started then to help not just the people in the agriculture areas, but everywhere in the Great Depression. But there were communities, co-ops, where they would share their food. They all relied on each other. They gave each other a helping hand. And a lot of people left these prairie lands, like the Jodes in the Grapes of Wrath, for the promise of hopeful jobs over in California, and they found out it was just as bad there as where they had left behind, unfortunately.
A rough time in our period, certainly in our history as a country, and definitely there especially. But Kirsten, too, that actually transitions really nicely into a talk that your keynote speaker, Dr. Craig, who's a geography and geology professor, is going to be talking about.
Right, and he actually has created his own documentary on the Dust Bowl. So we're fortunate to have him as our keynote speaker, talking about certainly the climate and the events that were affected in the Dust Bowl, but then also he is bringing that to modern day weather patterns and the drought that we're seeing in California and the southwest U.S. And he does a great job of making it relevant to us here in Illinois because it affects the prices we're paying at the grocery store as well.
You're also doing some screenings, Beth.
Yes. In addition to the Grapes of Wrath, we will be screening Ken Burns' The Dust Bowl documentary over 2 nights because it's a bit long. So 2 hours each night. The documentary that she was just referring to from Cameron Craig will be aired several times on our sister PBS station, WEIU. So people have several opportunities to see that.
And then February 3rd, Illinois plows and breaking the plains. We were talking about what that did to Illinois, too. Dr. Reed from the History Department, one of the foremost agricultural historians.
That's right.
Talking about that, too. We're almost out of time, but I want you to talk real quick about what you brought today.
We just wanted to bring a few examples. We spoke about the film already. This is Caroline Henderson and her husband. She has first-person accounts. Letters from the Dust Bowl is the name of her book, and that was the basis for a lot of our exhibit. And then we have Woody Guthrie's album and album cover here. One of our music professors will be performing and talking about the songs that inspired Woody Guthrie to write his album Dust Bowl Ballads, so direct relationship to what happened to him during the 30s.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's going to be a great exhibit.
Yeah.
Thank
Really
you so
fun.
much for being here. We appreciate it.
Beth and